Zillow's mortgage business is absolutely on fire, growing at a truly jaw-dropping pace. But here's the big question. Is all this success just because they've built a better, easier experience for consumers? Or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Well, a brand new lawsuit claims it's definitely the latter, alleging an illegal kickback scheme that could be impacting thousands of homebuyers, maybe even people like you. So let's break down exactly what this all means.
All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the sheer scale of Zillow's mortgage growth. It's pretty wild. Then, we'll meet the home buyer who's taking them to court. We'll unpack the alleged kickback scheme that's at the very heart of this lawsuit. Then, we'll explore what's really at stake for you, the consumer. We'll also hear Zillow's side of the story and their history here. And finally, we'll look at what happens next in this legal battle.
To really get why this lawsuit is such a big deal, you first have to wrap your head around the incredible scale of Zillow's mortgage business. Seriously, the numbers alone tell a fascinating story.
Okay, so to put this in perspective, in just a single 3-month period, 1 quarter, Zillow Home Loans originated a staggering $2.3 billion in mortgages. That's not just big, that makes them an absolutely dominant force in the market.
And this isn't just a big business, it's an exploding one. That $2.3 billion figure, that's a 57% increase over the exact same period last year. Let me tell you, a growth rate like that in the mortgage industry is almost completely unheard of.
Now, if you ask Zillow, their official position is pretty straightforward. This is just the result of them making it easier for buyers to get financing, a better product. But a new federal lawsuit filed by a first-time homebuyer suggests a very, very different explanation for this meteoric rise.
So how in the world did this massive corporate success story end up in federal court? Let's take a closer look at the lawsuit itself.
The person at the center of all this is Araba Armstrong. She's a first-time home buyer from Alaska. And according to her complaint, she found her real estate agent through Zillow. Then, at that agent's direction, she got her mortgage from Zillow Home Loans. On November 7th, she decided her experience wasn't just a coincidence. She believed it was grounds for a federal lawsuit.
So, what is this lawsuit actually claiming? This is where we get into the nuts and bolts of the accusation. It's an alleged scheme that really challenges the very foundation of how Zillow connects agents, buyers, and its own mortgage company.
Now, to understand the legal argument, you have to know about a law called RESPA. It's a federal consumer protection law, and it was designed specifically to prohibit kickbacks in the real estate world. The whole idea is to make sure that when you're referred to a service, like a mortgage lender, it's because they're a good choice for you, not because someone is getting a secret payment under the table.
And the other key legal idea here is something called fiduciary duty. This is the promise, both legal and ethical, that your real estate agent makes to you. It means they must put your best interests above all others, especially their own.
So here's how the lawsuit alleges those two principles are being violated. It claims Zillow gives valuable buyer leads to agents in its Flex program. In return, it's alleged, those agents are pressured to steer those exact buyers to Zillow Home Loans. The agents who hit their referral targets get rewarded with more and better leads, while the ones who don't, well, they risk getting kicked right out of the program. The lawsuit calls this a classic illegal kickback scheme.
Now, this might just sound like an industry dispute, right? But the lawsuit argues it has very real and very negative consequences for everyday homebuyers. So let's get into why this matters to you.
This quote from the legal complaint really cuts right to the chase. It argues that this system robs consumers of the disinterested advice of their fiduciary real estate agent. In other words, buyers are pushed towards Zillow's mortgage product without ever knowing their agent has a powerful financial reason to do so.
The potential for real financial harm is the crucial point here. A buyer might be steered to a loan that isn't their best option. Maybe it has higher costs or a worse interest rate. This could cost them thousands of dollars over time, or make them miss out on better loan programs, all because their agent's true incentives were never disclosed to them.
All right, so now let's look at Zillow's side of this. It turns out this isn't the first time the company has faced accusations like these, and they have a pretty clear position on how they do business.
Yeah, this really didn't just come out of nowhere. If you look back in 2023, Zillow actually settled a different class action lawsuit over a previous mortgage marketing program. Then, more recently, in October of 2025, an investigative report from the Capitol Forum made very similar claims about this Flex program. That was just a month before this new lawsuit was filed.
In response to that earlier report, Zillow put out a statement defending its model. A spokesperson said the company prioritizes transparency and consumer choice and is guided by a commitment to operate responsibly and in accordance with applicable laws.
Zillow also argues that its system for rewarding agents is actually pretty complex. They say that whether an agent gets more or fewer leads isn't based on a single factor like mortgage referrals, but on a whole list of different performance metrics.
So now that we've heard the arguments from both sides, the big question is, where does this legal battle go from here?
Well, this isn't just about one home buyer. The plaintiff is pushing for class action status. If that's granted, it could bring thousands of other home buyers who use Zillow Home Loans into the case. They're also asking for a jury trial, financial damages, and, maybe most importantly, a court order to stop Zillow from continuing these alleged practices.
Ultimately, this lawsuit raises a huge fundamental question for our modern real estate market. When a giant tech platform connects you with an expert, like a real estate agent, how can you ever be sure that expert is working for you and you alone? This case could end up setting a major precedent for what transparency and trust look like in the digital age.